Yams of the damned. Thanksgiving. My least favorite time of year, a holiday devoted to overeating and pretending to bond with family. This year, for the second time in a row, I was the one hosting. Let me tell you, I was in no way prepared. My mum guilted me into it, claiming I had the only house big enough, and my sister insisted my apartment had a cozy vibe. Right, because squeezing more than 2 people in there at once didn't violate multiple fire codes. I'd cut corners, big ones. The turkey was still half frozen, I'd forgotten cranberries, and my mashed yams came from a guy selling them out of an unmarked truck on the highway. I know what you're thinking. Who buys food from some sketchy roadside vendor? But the prices were ridiculous, and he looked, well, trustworthy in an alternate universe. The yams were a little off plumper, with a faint glow. But I figured, who am I to question Mother Nature? They were getting mashed anyway. As the clock ticked down, I surveyed the table. My glowing yams were front and center. I had this under control, right? My family arrived in their usual dysfunctional fashion. Aunt Martha was first, immediately eyeing the yams with suspicion. Very rustic, she said. Just wait until you taste them, I said, trying to keep it together. Uncle Joe didn't waste time grumbling about last year's Thanksgiving disaster. My family reluctantly took their seats, the vibe somewhere between awkward reunion and hostage situation. I gestured enthusiastically at the spread. Born app tit. Dig in. Aunt Martha was the first to try the yams. She took a bite, froze, and then stared at me with wide eyes. Delicious, she mumbled, voice distant. My Aunt Martha, complimenting my cooking? Then, Cousin Dave took a bite. His head tilted at an odd angle, and his eyes glazed over. I watched in horror as he started drooling. Dave? You okay? No response. Uncle Joe had also taken a bite and was now staring blankly at the wall. And then it happened. One by one, my family went into zombie mode. They chewed, stared, drooled. I backed away from the table, trying to process what was happening. Aunt Martha stood up, eyes fixed on me. Then my other relatives followed, still chewing, their eyes vacant. I muttered, "What's happening?" Aunt Martha's arms reached toward me. It hit me my family wasn't craving dinner anymore, they were craving me. Panicking, I bolted for the kitchen, barricading myself behind a chair. Through the door, I heard the low groans of my zombified family Yambies. I decided to call them. I needed a weapon. Desperately, I grabbed a rolling pin. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Lisa. I answered, nearly dropping it in my haste. Lisa, Thanksgiving is a disaster. My family's turned into Yambies. Yambies, she laughed. Like, yam zombies? Yes, they ate the food I made, and now they're trying to eat me. Lisa thought I was joking. I couldn't believe it. My family was about to break down the door, and she was laughing. Then, with a loud thud, the door splintered. They were coming. Aunt Martha led the charge, her eyes gleaming with hunger. Get stuffed, Aunt Martha, I yelled, swinging the rolling pin. The satisfying thunk of it hitting her forehead only momentarily slowed her down. Cousin Dave lunged. I sidestepped, hitting him in the shoulder. My family was relentless. I grabbed a turkey leg and threw it at Uncle Joe. He caught it and started eating it like it was his first meal in a week. You're supposed to eat that, not me, I yelled, backing toward the dining room. I needed to think fast. Then I saw it, the leftover gravy. I grabbed the gravy boat and poured it all over the floor, hoping it would make them slip, and it worked. Aunt Martha slid across the floor, crashing into the refrigerator. Dave followed, falling face first into the mess. Joe took out a few chairs as he stumbled. That was my chance. I ran for the yams on the counter and bolted toward the living room, my family still in pursuit. The fireplace was roaring. Perfect. I reached the hearth and raised the bowl of yams. Aunt Martha's eyes widened in horror as I dumped the yams into the flames. They hissed and smoked as my family froze, then collapsed, snoring as if they'd just overdosed on tryptophan. I sank to the floor, the rolling pin still in hand, surrounded by my unconscious family. Next year, Aunt Martha's hosting, I muttered. I stood up, exhausted, and reached for a broom. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I sighed. Who could it be? I opened the door to find the roadside produce guy, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. I thought I'd check in and see if you needed more yams for Christmas. These are guaranteed to make your next get-together extra memorable. I glanced back at my family, groaning on the floor. I was too tired to care how he'd found me, but I wasn't too tired to notice the glowing yams in his hands. Thanks, but I've had enough excitement for 1 year, I said, slamming the door in his face.